Canada just pulled off an election shocker for the ages. Across the country, millions of Canadians tuned in, expecting a close race, maybe even a nail-biter. But what unfolded was nothing short of historic, a political earthquake that sent shockwaves from coast to coast. The atmosphere was electric, with people glued to their screens, jaws dropping as the results rolled in. Mark Carney's Liberals, widely considered the underdogs at the start of the campaign, swept to a landslide victory, crushing the competition and defying every poll and pundit. The party's supporters erupted in celebration, their disbelief quickly turning to pure joy. It was a night that will be remembered for generations as the Liberals surged ahead in riding after riding, leaving their rivals stunned and scrambling for answers. Nobody saw it coming, not the experts, not the polls, not even that psychic octopus who's famous for predicting elections. Political analysts were left speechless, scrambling to explain how every forecast had missed the mark so dramatically. Social media lit up with disbelief as Canadians everywhere tried to process what had just happened. So how did Carney pull off this political miracle? What were the key moments, strategies, and surprises that led to this stunning turnaround? Let's break down the 10 reasons why the Liberals won big in 2025, and how this election will shape Canada's future for years to come. When Donald Trump reignited his infamous trade wars, Canada found itself directly in the line of fire. The world watched as the US president signed a flurry of executive orders, each one threatening to upend decades of economic partnership. Headlines blared about tariffs, border inspections intensified, and the once friendly relationship between neighbors suddenly felt tense and uncertain. For Canadians, the stakes were high. Jobs, businesses, and the very fabric of their economy seemed to hang in the balance. The question on everyone's mind: who would lead Canada through this storm? Across the country, anxiety grew. Protesters took to the streets, waving signs and demanding action. In living rooms and coffee shops, Canadians gathered around televisions, watching the latest updates with a mix of worry and hope. Business owners, from small-town shopkeepers to major manufacturers, wondered if their livelihoods would survive the coming economic shockwaves. The nation was united in its desire for a leader who could stand up to American pressure and defend Canadian interests on the world stage. Enter Mark Carney. With a reputation forged at the highest levels of global finance, Carney was no stranger to economic crises. As a former central banker for both Canada and the United Kingdom, he brought a steady hand and a bold vision. He promised to diversify Canada's economy, reducing its heavy reliance on the US market. Carney's plan was ambitious: invest in new industries, foster innovation, and build stronger trade ties with Europe, Asia, and beyond. He spoke of resilience, opportunity, and a future where Canada could chart its own course. To back up his words, Carney unveiled a sweeping $20 billion fund aimed at supercharging Canadian businesses. The initiative promised support for entrepreneurs, incentives for manufacturers, and resources for tech startups ready to compete on the global stage. Carney also vowed to go toe-to-toe with Trump at the negotiating table, determined to secure fair deals for Canadian workers and industries. The message was clear: Canada would not be bullied, and its future would not be dictated by Washington. Canadians responded with overwhelming support. Polls showed that 68% of the population trusted Carney more than any other leader to handle the trade crisis. Election night was a celebration. People filled the streets, waving flags and cheering for a new era of confidence and determination. For many, Carney represented hope, a leader who could protect their jobs, their families, and their way of life. As 2025 dawned, the tension between Canada and the US reached new heights. Trump's tweets, fired off from the Oval Office, dominated headlines and social media feeds. But instead of dividing Canadians, the drama south of the border brought them closer together. There's nothing like a common adversary to unite a nation. And in this moment, Canadians stood shoulder to shoulder, determined to defend their interests and their identity. In the face of uncertainty, Mark Carney emerged as the economic shield Canada needed. His leadership inspired confidence, his policies sparked innovation, and his resolve reminded Canadians that together they could weather any storm. As the world watched, Canada was ready to make itself great on its own terms. The Conservatives in 2025, total meltdown. Leadership chaos, public infighting, and policy flip-flops made them look like amateurs. Meanwhile, Carney's Liberals stayed disciplined and focused on the economy and the environment. Voters noticed the Conservatives' support in key provinces collapsed. Sometimes, you don't need to be brilliant to win, just let your opponent self-destruct. Carney walked right through the open door to victory. This was the year Gen Z stormed the polls. Carney's team dominated TikTok and Instagram, making politics viral and relatable. He promised action on climate, affordable education, and green jobs, issues young voters cared about. The result? A 15-point lead among voters under 30 and millions of views on campaign videos. Gen Z proved they're not just the future, they're the present. The wildfires of 2024 made climate change impossible to ignore. Canadians demanded action, and Carney delivered a bold net zero by 2035 plan. 72% supported stronger climate action, a clear mandate. Carney became the climate candidate, promising a green economy and real solutions. Canadians chose hope and action over denial. For years, housing in Canada felt like an impossible dream for millions. Prices soared to record highs, open houses turned into battlegrounds of bidding wars, and would-be buyers faced constant disappointment. Young families, newcomers, and even long-time residents watched as their hopes of homeownership slipped further out of reach. The crisis wasn't just about numbers, it was about the growing sense of despair and frustration that gripped communities from coast to coast. Then came a bold promise. Mark Carney, stepping into the political spotlight, pledged to build 1 million new homes within 5 years. But this wasn't just another empty campaign slogan. Carney's plan was anchored in real, tangible policy, streamlining the process for construction permits, introducing a ban on foreign buyers to cool speculative demand, and implementing rent controls to protect tenants from runaway costs. These measures signaled a serious commitment to tackling the crisis head-on. The results were soon visible. Construction sites buzzed with activity as cranes dotted the skyline, and new developments sprang up across the country. For the first time in years, the pace of rent increases began to slow, giving renters a much-needed break. Young people and families started to feel a cautious optimism as stories of successful moves and new leases replaced tales of endless searching and heartbreak. Of course, the transformation wasn't perfect. Not every promise was fulfilled overnight and challenges remained. But for many Canadians, seeing new homes rise and communities grow offered a sense of hope that had been missing for far too long. It was a beginning, a sign that change was possible, even if the journey was just getting started. That glimmer of hope, however modest, was enough to inspire action. As election day approached, more and more people saw housing as the defining issue of their vote. For the first time, it felt like their voices and their ballots could make a real difference in shaping the future. By making housing the centerpiece of his campaign, Carney didn't just offer policies, he offered a vision. And for many Canadians, that was enough to make housing a winning issue. The real 2025 battleground? Online. The Liberals mastered memes, viral videos, and targeted ads powered by AI and data. Their digital machine knew exactly who to reach and how. The Conservatives, still figuring out Facebook. The Liberals had 500% more online engagement, proof that elections are now won on the internet. Carney's team out-memed, out-messaged, and outsmarted the competition. The October surprise fizzled. Accusations flew at Carney, but he stayed calm, addressed everything head-on, and released the facts. The so-called scandal vanished, and Carney's support actually rose. Canadians valued transparency and steady leadership. The attempted takedown only made Carney look stronger. Politics can be dull, but Carney brought charisma and connection. He was a master communicator, funny, sharp, and inspiring. His debate moments went viral, racking up millions of views. Carney made policy sound exciting and relatable. He won hearts as well as minds. In 2025, Canadians wanted a leader with real swag, and they got one. Carney's secret weapon, making Canada less dependent on the US. He forged new trade deals with Europe, Asia, and Australia, and invested in green tech. The economy boomed, exports soared, and the Canadian dollar strengthened. Carney Trump-proofed Canada, showing voters they could thrive independently. It was a message of confidence, and it worked. In a chaotic world, Canada stood out for stability and good governance. Carney promised steady leadership and delivered economic growth, low inflation, and record low unemployment. He avoided divisive rhetoric and empty promises, earning trust as the adult in the room. The result? A landslide, 187 seats in Parliament. Sometimes, boring is exactly what people want. So there you have it, the 10 reasons Carney's Liberals pulled off a historic win. Was it genius, timing, or luck? Let us know in the comments. 2025 proved that experience, competence, and a solid plan still matter. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more political deep dives.